Oh, I've had to do this just so many times. So many. I'm just going to be awash in nostalgia at reading all of these stories because this is just, I just have too many times I've rejected a girl. I've never done this. Let's get started. Guys, what's the worst way to reject a girl? Story 1. Bro, I'm Mexican, but this is really worth it. When I was in high school, I was probably about 15 years old, and I've always been shy and introverted. Well, a little less nowadays. The point is that in my class, there was a girl who was very cute and quite popular, actually. And she was used to being the center of attention, and she was very, very narcissistic. One day, while I'm studying at lunch, this girl comes up to me subtly and with a smile asks me if I can do her a favor. Turns out she was bad at math and English, and she wanted me to do her full-on homework. Obviously, I told her no and told her to go to hell. The girl was totally upset because she probably thought that being the way I am, I was going to get what she wanted quickly and easily. The scary thing comes at this point, bro. When I go home, it always used to be a long way, but when I cross a couple of neighborhoods in Mexico City on the way home, this girl came out of a corner almost like she was waiting for me. At the time, I could only look surprised because I knew she didn't live around there. So when I'm there looking at her, still surprised, the crazy woman took out a damn hammer from her backpack. When I saw that, I knew that things were more serious than I thought, and I started to run, but I almost failed in the attempt because this shrew had very good aim. The crazy shrew threw the hammer right at my head, and my friend, I would swear that lightning struck me from the top of my head to my feet at that moment. I just started crying and running until I got home. My parents went to file a complaint against her, but since her family was wealthy and from a political party, she just went away, and nobody did anything about it, and I was left with an ugly scar from the injury. And also, some memory problems to this day because of that blow. In a nutshell, friends, don't mess with the crazy ones, because it can be dangerous. This is tragic. It's almost like you don't have a choice. Either you do what she says and be under her control, or refuse her and you get attacked. At least she went away. It's the kind of thing that wants to put you off dating for the rest of your life. Story 2. Girl here, and this was when I was in 8th grade. But a girl I only saw as a friend/sister/daughter found out I was bi and fell head over heels for me. I rejected her because, no. I didn't feel the same way. She was a year younger, not very good for my mental health, and very immature for her age. She continued to pester me, tried holding my hand, tried getting me gifts, tried keeping me away from my actual crush. Whenever I said the obvious, you can't force someone to love you, she'd sulk over to a teacher and act like I was a bully. Finally, I had enough when I told her what I always did, and she said, "I just wish you could be mine," then kissed me on the forehead. Intimate assault. Last straw. I went off on her and said that what she was doing was wrong. She tried victimizing herself and acting like I was the bad guy, saying that I didn't like her just because she wasn't as pretty as my crush. Her teeth were messed up and she was fat. She was a little chunky, but I'd never act like someone was worse because they're fat. Meanwhile, I'm standing there with my horrible anxiety, depression, trauma, and insecurities. I had been picked on and skinny shamed for most of my life, and I always was very gentle and supportive when she came to me with her body insecurities. Since I was around 7, I've had retainers, palate expanders, braces, and teeth extractions. With that much mouth trauma, I never judge people's teeth. Meanwhile, I've openly discussed with her how insecure I am about my appearance. Would an insecure person actually be judgmental towards someone also struggling with that? Also, whenever I tried venting to her about my issues, she would literally just look at me in annoyance and say, "You're fine." No, I was not. When faced with all that, she still tried acting like I was a horrible person for, what? Not wanting to be with her. For the rest of the year, I felt horribly uncomfortable around her and had to stand in the back of the school shop where I worked when she came over. Stepped away from an around 3 to 4 year friendship because of that. and never felt happier. Did no one else notice any of this? Did this person not have any other friends? From the way she tells it, it sounds like there's no other recourse she can go to about this person, like the high school equivalent of a restraining order. Story 3. I remember I was selected for a trip to go to China in primary 5, before the pandemic, obviously. And that was the time my stalker and I met. After we arrived in China, we were allowed to go on a tour in 2 schools, a very old one and a newly built one. It was in the old school that my stalker became obsessed with me. Fast forward to when it was like a week after the trip, she got my number because I guess my classmate gave it to her, and she proceeds to spam me messages. Non-stop. I don't want to hear my phone notifications and it vibrating in my pocket every time, but no, she kept doing it. I blocked her afterwards, but of course, she just couldn't leave me alone. Her friends kept being persistent about me unblocking her so that she would stop whining about why she wasn't getting a reply from me. I told them that they should deal with it because I don't want to waste my time with someone I don't want to know. I gave up since it continued and I unblocked her, which was pretty stupid of me to do. I decided to see what she was like and oh boy, she was kinda cringy. Actually, no, she was cringy as hell. She kept asking me what our ship names would be and doing edits with my face that I don't approve of because we weren't even dating or hell, even friends. To me, she was just an acquaintance who was a weird stalker. I had enough when she sent me all this weird stuff she did without my approval and blocked her again. After an incident involving me being a runaway child, I never spoke, saw, or heard about her again. Been 2 years now, and I now have a friend who's a girl who isn't a psycho. Also, the phone I used at the time broke, so I don't care what that girl has to say. I'm done with that life. So it wasn't enough just to change numbers? The phone had to break? I guess that's one way of cutting off contact. And what's with the friends telling this person to unblock her? What are they, like stalker wingmen? Story 4. Not a rejection story, but it might make you smile a bit. I have never rejected anyone because I've always hated the idea of going on dates so badly I'd go out of my way to make myself the most undateable friend I could be. Sometimes I'd friend-zone girls before we even really started talking. I had grown up without much intimate desire, and I had always heard horror stories of how bad girls can actually be, both from family, friends, online, and even from women I've spoken to. So I decided, curse that noise. Then one day, I meet a girl I actually really like. Like. We technically met once before this, but our first real interaction was in high school while I was on my way to lunch. She had her computer out and was drawing on it. I thought it was really good and decided to talk to her. We hit it off, and about a week later, I started to have feelings for her. Now, when I meet people and become friends with them, once I'm not going somewhere they regularly go, I never really see or hear from them again. When I graduated a year before her, I refused to let that be the end of it. I knew she had an art-based social media, but I had no clue where she posted. And she had changed her username 2 days before graduation. After I think a full year of looking, I finally find her on Twitter, DM her, and our friendship continued. 2 years after that, and we're an official couple about to move in with each other. I couldn't be happier with where I am now. I think I'm going to propose to her someday. Story 5. My story can be cut short in 2 words. She didn't. Longer version. Basically, she knew me for 2 hours and already asked me out. I didn't care for her and just rejected it. Thing is, she didn't accept that. And one day when the school was having an assembly, she made a move. The high school makes it to where we have an assembly. It's called per grade. I was in a class that wasn't in the freshman hallway, and turns out she was in a class behind it. She grabs me and starts running with me, first by the sleeve, then by the neck of my shirt. If my friend wasn't just leaving their class, I probably would have been dragged to where she was. My friends sit right in front of the door going in, so they probably would have helped me, but still. After that, she pretended like nothing happened. Even tried to get a few people to fight me. Thing is, while she was getting into relationships with a bunch of people and making them despise her, I'm not making that up. Almost everyone dated her and hated her name after with how she cheats. I was making friends with everyone, and due to that, no one wanted to and even told me about it. Soon, she just kind of stopped appearing. Most recently, she tried friending me on Facebook with a fake name. Yeah, no. Story 6. These make my rejection stories look amazingly tame. All I got was a mild amount of discomfort from a coworker who didn't realize I took my marriage seriously. She joked around one too many times in front of the store manager. Store manager saw I was uncomfortable and told her to stop it. Crisis averted? Nothing happened past that. Very happy she stopped calling me her work husband. That was off-putting. Never got physical, but it seemed like she wanted to go there. She was the type who wasn't as pretty as my wife, but still kinda out of my league in a weird way. I like my wife because she's thick and calming and very loving, but the coworker was considered more magazine cover pretty, but wouldn't cut it, because the modeling world would be too harsh on her flaws. We all know the type. Not a day goes by where I'm not overjoyed that nothing happened and the boss helped stop it when he did. Could have been so much worse. Calling someone your work wife or work husband only works if they feel the same way. You have to have a really good relationship and communication for that to happen, as well as setting boundaries. This guy was very fortunate the store manager was sympathetic and was listening to the situation. It's one of those few positive work stories where the upper management is actually considerate of their employees' situations. Story 7. In my experience, most guys move on pretty quick from rejections. Can't say that for the opposite sex. It seems to hurt girls to the core. This one chick in high school, which was pretty hot but had a personality of a 3-foot ocean, borderline stalked me. And I don't really like rejection, so I never bothered to say, hey, look, I don't feel like having that kind of relationship with you. One day, it eventually boiled over because she kept leaning and sitting on me. I straight said, look, you need to stop. This is invading my personal space. She cried out of class. A few days later, I got called to the principal's office. Turns out, I'd apparently been stalking and invading her personal space. I walked in, heard what she'd been told, then proceeded to ask if other sources were present about the whole situation and to do a character check on me for the last 3 years of schooling. She literally looked at me and said what I interpreted as, understandable, have a nice day. The chick transferred 2 weeks later. End of story.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 8. When I was a kid, I used to study at a Catholic school. There was a girl that liked me, and she was possessive as hell. I couldn't talk to other girls, and she would bully me. She was taller and stronger than me, and 2 years older, and I didn't tell anyone about this because I was afraid of what would happen. The Catholic school had a huge stair that starts after the entrance and ends in the garden of the library. And the stairs are like 5 meters tall, or 17 feet. I was at the top of the stairs, and she came closer and started saying she liked me, wanted to play with me, and that I was beautiful, even considering myself ugly at the time. I was reading a book about birds at the time. I just wanted to keep reading and told her I wasn't interested. She got really mad at this and pushed me from the stairs. Luckily, when I was pushed, I immediately held on the stairs handrail and didn't fall. I was ticked off because the book got dirty and the librarian would complain with me and screamed at her, "Leave me alone." And after that, she discovered the girl I liked and told everyone I liked her, including the girl herself. And I heard jokes about it for the rest of the year, so that's it. Story 9. Some girl was interested in me at school and I said no. She wouldn't stop bothering me, and every time she saw me, she ran towards me. Her friend kept trying to convince me to get with her, and I kept saying no, I really didn't like her. A few weeks before all this, every time she spoke to me, she sounded so angry at me and spoke in a really condescending way. She always walked up to me and said, "Hi," in a really flirty way. I noticed this is something a different girl did the year before, except this time was worse and more consistent. After a couple weeks, she still did it, but less. Her friend who tried to get me with her soon started to do the same to me. They all claimed that we had been best friends for ages. I keep saying that it would never happen because they keep saying we're best friends. Can someone please tell me what's going on or what they're doing? I really need help to solve this problem. I'm having a little trouble understanding myself. It must make perfect sense to these girls. They're just trying to find some sort of in to worm their way into being around this person more often. Sounds like this person just needs to put more distance between themselves and these girls. Story 10. There was this one woman I turned down, 5 years older than me, by the way, who had on numerous occasions mentioned that she was into me. She was also, and I quote, honest about being a hypocrite. Yeah, it was confusing. It was the first time I had to turn down someone. I tried to let her down as gently and politely as I could, insisting that I'd prefer to be a friend. I had hoped for the best. Turns out, she did not have good fortune when it came to dating. She said her last few were varying degrees of unapologetically awful. This made it hard for me to feel anything other than guilty when she whipped out stuff like, "So you're friend-zoning me?" or called me entitled over the phone afterwards, after we had both left the mall. Even now, I'm not sure how or what exactly I did wrong. I felt like that was uncalled for, but I didn't have it in me to argue at that point. I just felt like trash. I think I'll stick off dating for a little while longer. Story 11. I was nice to some kids at a party, and the mother of one of the girls started giving hints that she wanted to date me, even though I had no idea who she was, as this was the first time we met. We hadn't even talked. She just literally noticed me being nice to all the kids, including her daughter. Found out that she had broken up with the father of her daughter recently and was likely just after a replacement man, and being nice and polite to her daughter was all it took to be qualified for the job. I feigned confusion and told her I didn't understand what she was talking about because I have Asperger's syndrome. I don't normally use my condition to my advantage. Normally. But I honestly don't know what else to do to get her to leave me alone. And yeah, having Asperger's was enough to make her disinterested in me. Story 12. She actually tried to unalive me. Chased me out of the apartment with a knife. Fortunately, I was in much better shape than she was and only had to leg it up the block until she gave up. She would come around to my usual haunt/job to go on about how she had people. How I'd better watch out because she'd tell them I'd done XYZ to her if she ever saw me again, etc. This went on for a month, during which time she got banned from all my regular establishments and the guards at the docks would run her off. Later on, she got arrested for sticking a knife in an on-again, off-again ex who hobbled his way to the police station while she came at him with another. When they arrested her, she tested positive for Walter White crystals and raver pills. Lovely. Story 13. I was about to do my A-level. I'm German, just so you don't wonder about that term. And a girl a year under mine came up to me asking for help in physics and English, as we had the same teachers in both subjects. So after helping her pass both subjects to qualify for the A-level exams, she confessed she liked me, and I tried my best to reject in the most polite way possible that I'm flattered and all. She went to full rage mode and was like hell you'll find any other girl in your life. Well, a month later, I started dating her older sister for 2 years. It was not on purpose, though. I didn't even know before the first time I visited her parents with her. Her sister's expression when she saw me with her big sis was something else. Still gives me the chills just thinking about it. Story 14. I have a story myself. So there was this one girl in my high school that made it very obvious she liked me. I tried to ignore it at all costs because I hated having to reject people. When she finally decided to just say she wants to date, I had to turn her down. Her exact words after this were, "I refuse. We have to date. It will make your mom happy. I'm begging you, please." Take in mind, this girl does not know my mom. After that, she started to stalk me for about 3 months until eventually she stopped. Story 15. I dated a girl for like 2 months, and she had this thing for chewing on my face. Like draw blood kind of chewing. I started avoiding her more and more, and eventually told her this isn't working. She goes ape rage. Tells all her friends, and they showed up to my work and smashed my truck to pieces. literally undrivable. I had to get a restraining order on her, and even then she'd follow me to work as I biked my way there. Even went so far as to bring 2 of her friends along, and they even tried to kidnap me. She was eventually arrested, but I lived in fear for a solid 6 months after our breakup. Story 16. I got one for you. Once, I rejected a girl, and in the end, she got me fired from my job. Tried saying I hit on all the women in my workplace, and flirt with every female worker or customer. For one, at the time I was taken, and it was my ex trying to get me back, and I'm more annoyed that my workplace didn't even consider to bring me in and question me. They just fired me on the spot. Then I went off at the owner saying, "Hey, they let child perverts work there. I've caught and dobbed in 3 of them," and proceeded to get the workplace shut down. It was very interesting, but at the same time, it got me out of a toxic job situation. Story 17. The worst I had was the response, "What would you do if I jumped in front of a train?" My response, this may offend, but if I didn't go to this extreme, she would have kept trying. I would feel bad for the train driver. They did not deserve that level of trauma. She never spoke to me again, and of course, no reports of said train threat, and she's fine 10+ years later. I know if I gave in, she would continue to blackmail me whenever I would say no. Story 18. If you have been reasonable in rejecting a person's advances, and then they threaten to self-terminate unless you get together with them, it's my belief that you should reaffirm your lack of interest with them one last time, implore them not to do anything rash or reckless, and then, if they insist they will go ahead with their ill-advised plan anyway, inform them that it's not your responsibility to acquiesce to their demands in order to save their life, and then tell them that whatever drastic action they choose to perform is on them and them alone. Story 19. A girl asked me if I was going with anyone to the high school prom. I told her I wasn't going with anyone. She said, "Would you like to?" My oblivious self laughed and said, "I'm good on my own. No one would want to go with me anyway." It was literally last month when me and some mates were talking about our proms when I mentioned that and paused halfway through telling the story and said, "Oh, she was asking me to prom." Hilarity ensues. Story 20. I asked out my friend. She friend-zoned me, but gave me some very solid reasons as to why. She was surprised that I had even gotten the confidence to ask her, but was proud of me for trying. She was also extremely grateful toward me for being able to accept no for an answer, especially since this one guy she knows has been asking her and trying to kiss her for the past 4 years. Story 21. I rejected a girl in middle school. Was set up for a scholarship if my grades kept up to high school since I was top 2% in state testing. Lost the chance from the program and got ostracized by all of my teachers when she said I violated her. I hadn't even been able to get it up yet, so thankfully the cops quickly found me innocent. But that didn't stop the teachers and students from believing her.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.